Hello, hello. This is the 118th Test from the Future, an experimental podcast from the year 22-23, which we are sending from our present to yours. My name is Dirk.
And my name is Simon.
And we're putting the past in podcast. Today, we have a topic that is different than usual. It's not about technology, not necessarily. It's about politics.
That's right, yeah. There are some elections coming up, and maybe we wouldn't have mentioned them normally, but you've been selected.
Exactly. The election system is quite interesting, as I understand it, quite differently from that in the 21st century. So you, the listener, might know how politics work, but it's very different in the 23rd century. And then normally, I'm not sure we would have mentioned it in our show, but I've actually been selected. So we thought that would be a nice opportunity to speak about it some more. Shall I basically explain how the system works?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a brief overview, yeah. I think that would be helpful.
So it's all relatively fresh. So the selection happened only a few days ago, and me and Simon had a course today. So specifically about this, we can speak about it in a few minutes. But just to get the political structure, as far as I understand it, because I never really gave it that much attention. So there are different political regions. So this can be cities that are part of a district, that are part of a region, that are part of a province. I need to get the order right. That are part of a country, continent, planet. I think maybe I've missed one of
it. Yeah, I didn't pay so much attention. I figured I'd look it up later if I needed to know it. Yeah, but that sounds like what I learned in the course.
Yeah. So these are all the different levels and the different bodies that you can be, let's say, a politician in. And of course, like countries and regions and districts are all different sizes. Some have more, some have less, some have none. I think Luxembourg doesn't actually have any regions. They go straight to districts or something like that. Anyway, very complicated, but apparently very logical. And the thing about being a politician is you get elected, but you can't just vote for everybody you want. As far as I understand, this was the case in the 21st century. You can't not just elect anybody you want anymore. You have, in our case, 40 candidates that you can vote for. And these candidates are randomly selected. And that is where I come in. I have been randomly selected to be one of the 40 candidates for Frankfurt in the upcoming election.
Yeah. Right, that's how you got involved in it. And then the reason I'm involved is so you were selected to stand for election, and then you get to choose who will be your campaign manager. And it was nice enough of you to choose me.
Yes. I thought this was, immediately I thought this can be great content for the episode. And of course, I wouldn't know who else to have picked as a campaign manager anyway.
Sure.
So
yeah.
I think it would be fun.
Yeah. And I mean, I appreciate it because, of course, there are professional campaign manager agencies where someone who's selected, maybe they don't know someone who they think would be a good campaign manager. You know, they can go to those agencies who will help them. So I'm glad you went with me rather than one of them.
It's also interesting where they're making it completely randomized who gets to be a candidate, but then the candidate itself can also appoint the campaign manager. So this can be basically anybody.
Right. It could be someone who's maybe managed the campaigns of many previous politicians in many previous elections. And I mean, that does happen sometimes if someone who's selected actually it has a big investment in being elected. Maybe they'll go that route.
I understood that the political system in the world used to be different. There's apparently been centuries where there weren't any elections at all. Just somebody said, hey, I'm in charge, and then they were in charge.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Often through force. So not so applicable to us now, but in the past through, using weapons, using militaries, things like that. But even when it wasn't that, sometimes like a nicer version would be if everyone just somehow agreed, yep, this person should be I think they used to call it a king or an emperor. Like the Emperor Spontianus that we had some episodes ago. And it wasn't an election thing, it was more just like everyone somehow agreeing that person should be in charge.
It does seem relatively straightforward, so no overhead, no complicated systems, and everybody has to vote and tally the results and have another round if there is not absolute majority, blah, blah, blah. Okay, there's just one candidate, everybody likes this person. Fine. Yeah. So that it can.
This is something we learned on the course yesterday. Yeah, like that can go well for a little while, and the issue is after around 10 years of being in such a position of power, humans don't deal with that well. They go the stress and the pressure of having to make so many decisions that affect the lives of, depending on the area, but hundreds of thousands or even millions of people. Humans are not built to withstand that for more than 10 years. 10 years is the outside edge, like that's just too much. And for that reason, the terms are limited to 5 years, and you can only be a politician for one term. So that people don't get hurt, basically.
And it's I like it. It's only fair that, of course, this doesn't actually count for robots, for example, but they said, no, the same rules for everybody. So basically the weakest part of the chain are the humans. So let's just make the rules that they also work for humans. So
yeah, part of it, and then the next part of that is okay. You've so let's say you win this election and you have the position and you hold it for 5 years, full term. If you somehow really enjoy politics and you want to stand for another political position, if you're selected, it won't be for at least another 10 years because there's a 10 years pause, like where you can't be selected, like it's random, but in those 10 years after your term, you're not eligible to be selected.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They really properly thought it through.
Exactly. They don't want people getting, hurt. It sounds maybe a bit funny, but to people in the past, but that's what it really does to you to be in charge of anything so serious for so long. And the funny thing though with robots is, like you say, it doesn't actually apply to them physiologically. And because they're robots, if they really want, they can just pause themselves. So if they really, a robot really gets into politics, really enjoys it, but they know they can't stand for another 10 years at least, or not even 10 years yet. They can't stand until they're selected, which at the minimum won't be for another 10 years. They can just pause themselves and then, have themselves unpaused when they're next selected.
That's actually pretty smart if they're really into it.
If they're really into the politics, they don't want to do anything else. Because sure, that is another thing. Again, on the course, this is more like a disputed, I guess, or this is often discussed as a rule that maybe should be changed. It's left over from like over 100 years ago when there was a lot of corruption involved in politics, where once politicians finish their term, the rule is now that they're barred from having any landscaping job of any kind for 10 years. And that's pretty harsh if you were a landscaper before you became a politician.
Exactly. Like in my case, that like just in the theoretical case, I would get elected. That doesn't really matter. But exactly, if you're a landscaper and you get randomly selected, you really have to think about how serious am I going to take this election? Because if I'm going to get elected after 5 years, I can't do my original job anymore afterwards. Huh? Yeah. I didn't understand why either. So it's a pretty old rule, apparently.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like now it doesn't really make any sense yet, but the teacher, like, so we mentioned we were on this course yesterday, but we were in like separate classes, yeah? So maybe your teacher didn't go into this, but my one was like it wasn't in the curriculum, but they like gave a little bit more background to the story, which is that around 100 years ago, public parks were really abused by politicians, like they would set all the rules up while they were in office so that when they got out of office, they could make a huge amount of money by doing various things in the parks. And so that's why these rules were put in place.
Yeah, I guess. They must have had a really good reason. I wouldn't be surprised at one point people are going to question this rule, but I don't mind. So, sure. But it's a good point that you mentioned the course, because There were some courses that we both had, and sometimes together and sometimes not, but there were also separate courses for the candidate and for the campaign manager. So that was interesting also. I don't know everything that they taught you, and you don't know everything that
likewise.
they taught me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. But what at least was interesting in one of my courses is they explained why they had this system. So I don't remember everything, but what was really interesting is that apparently they tested it back in the day. And with this particular system, it was the best representation of everybody. So with the system that we mentioned before, where just one person was in charge and everybody said, yay, let's, have this person in charge. This didn't really end up representing everybody properly. But, first of all, it's one person. And second of all, it's the same person. It kind of breeds more sameness.
Yeah. And there was an in-between step, yeah? Like you're saying, there was that model where you just basically have one person saying, yep, I'm in charge, and everyone going, yep, you're in charge. There was an in-between model where you did have where they had elections, but rather than it being proper like now, where it's a random selection, it would be up to people to say, hey, yep, I want to stand for that position. And then, like you're mentioning with representation, that didn't work out so well. It would be the same small group of people over and over standing for those elections.
And exactly, and not just, let's say, if one particular person was a politician, everybody else who was kind of similar to that person was much more likely to say, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. I'm also going to be a politician, and it would just be like repeating itself. And also the people voting would be more inclined to vote for people that were more, and then it was better than the one person system, but still apparently it was a lot of the same. And once they started randomizing, you would just get, a representation of everybody among the candidates. And among the candidates, whoever seemed to be doing the best job would then get the most votes in this. Apparently it's the best system we've had so far.
Yeah.
Did you come with any particular highlights from your course?
I mean, like you say, we had slightly different tracks, some stuff in common, but then, I had stuff specifically about campaigns, about being a campaign manager. So one of the things is, so I need to make sure this is, that we stick to this, yeah? I need to make sure that you don't accept any gifts unless you can eat them. So you're not allowed to accept, meaning from, lobbies or interested parties who might think, if they give you a gift, maybe you'll do something in return for them once you're in office. But yeah, no gifts unless you can eat them.
Okay. Good thing I asked. I didn't know that. I didn't accept any gifts so far.
That's
I wasn't actually presented with any gifts.
Sure. I think the gift giving, this is what I was told in the course. So in the coming weeks, when there's everyone, as you said, there's 40 candidates, yeah? At the beginning, you'll all start receiving just some small little gifts. And then as the campaign goes on and it becomes clear, okay, who of those 40 candidates are maybe taking this more seriously, or even not even taking it seriously, but who is more likely to actually win the election, or then you may find yourself getting really big fruit baskets, cheese boards, things like that, That's when the presents will increase. And actually, this was a big point because I asked this, so unless you can eat them, and I was asking, okay, but you can eat a lot of things even if they're not food, you can, like maybe it won't be good for you, but you can eat them. But no, the way it's, there are some sub-clauses, and the whole point is it needs to actually be food,
Okay. I understand. But I actually didn't know. First of all, I was thinking, yeah, it makes sense. And now I'm thinking, cool, I'm going to get gifts. But,
yeah.
But even if it's gifts that you can eat, somebody gives me a nice, pie.
It will make you think fondly of them, yeah? Or it will make you think better of them, perhaps.
True. Yeah. So if I'm then later into policy making, which I didn't think about at all so far, I have to admit. Yeah. So I understand actually. What I thought was interesting were this was more of the research that they did. So it's not just that with this system, the candidates are more representative, but also people who were candidates are more likely to vote also next time. So at next elections, people who didn't vote in the past, but then they've been candidates, then are more inclined to vote in the next elections.
Yeah.
No. Apparently, they also eat more strawberries.
That too, yeah.
That's okay.
After it was mentioned in the things gifts you can eat. But an interesting thing with that is, like you say, it's really after the campaign is over. So not after you've served your term, but for whatever reason, during the campaign, candidates aren't so much into strawberries. Once the campaigning is over, and either you've been elected or not, either way, those 40 candidates in this case have a real craving for strawberries.
Mm-hmm. What I found was interesting because so far I don't know any of the other 40 candidates, and our course was like it wasn't even in Frankfurt, although it is for Frankfurt, because they have all of the candidates apparently distributed. So everybody who was in our course, they were candidates for, I don't know, Berlin or Paris or Vienna or something like that. So apparently they were the people that were in our course. They're not our competition apparently.
Right.
Because
I see what you mean. So you couldn't start sizing each other up already.
Yeah, but I didn't know at the beginning, so I was already basically looking around and thinking, okay, these are the top three. These three persons or robots are gonna win. And then later during the course, I learned these aren't even our competition. Oh.
Yeah.
But then what's interesting, what I mentioned before, we didn't really actually speak about plans and policies before, right? So
true. No, yeah.
I guess we should come up with some.
It would make sense, yeah. At some point there'll be debates, like between you and the other candidates, and so at the very least for those, yeah. And so at the very least for those, you'll need to have some positions on various things.
I hadn't thought of this at all. I should come up with some.
Yeah. Well, that's policies. Why your campaign manager will go through those and work some stuff out.
Aren't there I don't know, like 20 points where I just can give my opinion about? So I'm in favor.
Yeah, there were various templates. You can just download a template. Look through it, and you can choose, like, for example, what's your goal? Yeah, is your goal to be elected no matter the cost? Is your goal to lose no matter the cost? You really don't want to have this position, or something else. And then depending on your goal, you can choose your positions on various policies based on that.
Cool. You can just have basically kind of like a policy generator based on your position and your answers, and then if it generates a policy for you don't like it, you just have it generate a new one until there's one that you like.
You can do it that way, yeah. You can also, if you look through them and you see something that you actually have a strong opinion on, well, of course, you can make that the focus of your campaign, yeah? Mm-hmm. Or at least one of the focuses.
I already thought of one thing. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but the grass is rather high in Frankfurt, especially if you're hovering, especially if it's on a hoverboard or on hoverblades or something like that, can be quite annoying.
Yeah,
that can be a thing. No, that makes sense. Like a good policy.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, we'll discuss this after the episode. Like, we'll go through the various policies and such, but that does definitely sound like a promising one.
I also immediately understand why you can't have a landscaping job afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. It's very important, very integral.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I guess I haven't looked at our to-do list yet, but I guess a policy makes sense before we start with the debate, huh?
Yeah. And before our next episode, then we can even talk about this next time.
Good point, yeah, because it's going to last for a few weeks, I think, 2-3 weeks or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, I'm looking forward to that. But then maybe we can have our next episode also election themed. So we make a cut here and we go to listener questions.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Shall I read the question we have? We've just got we've got one this week. Ilka asked us, or wrote to us, you mentioned Disneyland before and Atlantis. They sound great. But what are your favorite theme parks and why? Do you want to go first?
Sure. My favorite theme park is Gotham City. Especially, it has similar rides to that as some of the other theme parks, but I really like the theme. It's kind of like a dark, gothic kind of.
That's the one with all the flying mice, yeah.
Exactly. And it has a lot of dark blue and some yellow accents, and I like it because even if you don't do any of the attractions, just walking around there or hovering around there, there's basically something really cool and detailed to see around every corner. Even if you just go a back alley of a back alley, you find, I don't know, like a talking rain pipe or a building you can climb on, and on top of the building there's a big switch you can pull, and then there's some sort of illuminated bat in the sky, and then there's a slide that takes you somewhere else, and then even look, there's no other visitors around, but it's basically anywhere you can go, you can climb and slide, and every door that you see you can enter, and behind there's something interesting. It's just very very big.
Yeah. Have you been there recently?
No.
No. But
no.
I mean,
but now I want to.
Yeah, sure. You have fond memories of it. Yeah. For myself,
totally.
Atlantis Land 2 is actually my favorite. It's opened about 3 or 4 years ago in Nevada, in America. So in the desert, yeah. And it's this really nice idea where it's in the desert. So how can Atlantis Land be in the desert? Well, this is Atlantis Land 2. And what they've actually done is build a huge dome, a glass dome, filled it up with water. And then, sure, a city as well, yeah? So a theme park of a city, yeah, not the real city. But and then, so you can visit it. And what's really nice is, you're swimming around. You've got your scuba gear on and so on, talking with the fishes and such. It's very different from real Atlantis, which isn't all flooded like that, yeah? It's more like taking the historic idea of what Atlantis was once it was flooded, after it had been a regular city. So it's...
It kind of reverses the Atlantis one.
Mm-hmm, yeah. And because it's, like I say, in the desert, under this glass, it's really bright and sunny in there, like really beautiful. Much more, even more brightly colored, and all kinds of refractions through the water and such. Feels really
You can
nice
imagine things grow really well as well there.
Exactly, right, with all that sunshine.
With all the sunlight. Mm-hmm. Okay. I have to admit, I didn't even know it was open already. You're saying 2 or 3 years?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Exactly. Opened, so let me think it through. I think it was originally due to open 3 years ago. Then it was delayed a little bit, so it opened 2 years ago. And I went, sure. In the first week it was open, that's when I went. Haven't been back since. I really want to.
I remember when because they've been building it forever. Apparently it was
it took a long time.
Tricky to get all the water there, right?
Mm-hmm. Or to get it there and have it not evaporate was the issue, until they actually sealed up the glass. They kept trying to fill it up before they finished it. They had to actually finish the complete glass dome first. Then it made sense to add the water. Oh,
it does sound fun, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So now I want to go to Gotham City and to Atlantis too now. So my bucket list just grew.
Mm-hmm.
Or to-do list, yeah.
To-do
cool.
list.
Yeah, so I hope that answered Ilka's question. If she has more questions. Ilka, if you have more questions about any of these, you can just send us another email.
Exactly. They can send us an email to michaellasagna5@gmail.com. And as well as the questions, in the subject line, put the number 118 so that we know that email is in response to this episode, and that even more importantly means that we know this episode successfully went back in time. Right. So for this episode, it's now time to travel back in time. For us, it's time to start making policies or thinking of some. Mm-hmm. And for you, the listener, thanks for listening, and see you in 200 years. Bye-bye.